What's up, guys? JD here, and on today's show, I am talking with Julie Smolyansky, president and chairwoman of Lifeway Foods. At 27 years old, Julie's dad suddenly dies, and she becomes the CEO of a publicly traded company doing $12 million a year. Fast forward to 2024, companies doing almost $200 million a year under her leadership. She talks about how she was early to influencer marketing, how she was one of the very first brands on MySpace and on Twitter. She sells kefir or kefir, which is a fermented drink product made with milk or water. She's going to tell you all about it, guys. That's coming up in just a sec. If you're a fan of the show, you know what to do. Smash the subscribe button and make sure to leave a comment. You can get my best stuff to your inbox at jondavids.com. And now, let's get to the episode. So, Julie, June 10th, 2002, you're 27 years old, and your life kind of turns upside down. Can you take me back and tell me that story?
Yeah, so the day before, we learned that my father had a sudden heart attack and passed away. And he was the founder of our company, Lifeway Foods, which is the country's leading manufacturer of kefir or kefir, which is like a probiotic yogurt drink. And yeah, so my father founded the company. He was like the soul. He was the man, and he ran it. It was a small team at the time. The business was about $12 million in revenue annually. I had worked for him for about 5 years right out of college. I was the director of sales and marketing at the time. And overnight, we were thrown into chaos, just complete shock, disbelief. He was 55 years old in the prime of his life. I was 27 at the time. It was absolutely devastating and epic proportions, because, obviously just not even just only the personal factor of losing your father, but he was also the leader of our company, and there's 70 employees, and everything my parents had risked for. When we immigrated, we were immigrants from the former Soviet Union, which I'm sure we can get into later. But yeah, it was devastating, and crisis doesn't even begin to describe what happened. A few feet away from me, my father's best friend, all the friends of the spouse come together at the surviving spouse's home. So my dad's best friend, a few feet away from me, said, "There's no way a 27-year-old girl can run this company. That's it. Sell all of your stock." We were publicly traded. So the next morning when the market opened, the stock crashed. It was dropping. NASDAQ halted trading. It was a really scary time. I really, truly felt all alone. I didn't know what the right next decision was. We had a really sleazeball attorney. He was our SEC counsel. He was trying to do some back deals behind the scenes. He was trying to position himself as interim CEO while he was the SEC counsel to try to flip the company like in those days. So it was a battle, and I just vividly remember standing over at the cemetery as we were going to pick out the plot for, where my dad would be buried. I got a call from a board member who was like, "Hey, Julie, were you aware of this emergency board meeting that Peter was trying to call?" And we had no clue. Nobody in the family knew about it.
This is
I
like
didn't
an episode
know.
of Succession.
Yeah. And by the way, this is actually the first time I'm talking about this with you. I've never told the story out loud.
Can we just pause for 1 second? Because this is an amazing story. Were you the predicted heir? Like, why would people even assume at the funeral that you were going to be the CEO?
Yeah, my father had been grooming me to be the CEO. He had invested in me. He sent me to media training in New York for a month. I lived in New York, and he said, "Julie, you're gonna run this company." He pointed out Christy Hefner to me, who took over Hugh's company, Playboy. He said, "Julie, I want you to follow in Christy's footsteps. You can do this." He said, "You can do anything you want except be the president of the United States, and that's only because you weren't born in America." He really believed in me. And, we had shareholder meetings, and they would ask literally like a week before this happened. We had our annual meeting of shareholders, and a question came from the audience. What happens if something happens to you? This seems like a one-man operation. And my dad pointed to me and said, "I've been grooming Julie since the day she was born. She's really capable and competent." So that knowing that my father believed in me was all I needed to succeed. Even today, nothing else matters. It didn't matter that guy, his best friend, said that I couldn't do it. It didn't matter that this, SEC counsel thought that he was going to pull one over me. He said, "Oh, come on," to my mom. He said, "Come on, Lucy, you need a little gray hair on your board to deal with those folks, to deal with everyone." So, none of that mattered. All I know is the most important man in my life, the smartest man, my dad, believed in me. And that's all I needed to keep going forward, even when the rest of the world was telling me I couldn't do it.
Did your dad raise you? Were you like on the factory floor watching the kefir being made? Were you kind of a kid being raised in the factory in the
Yeah,
business?
yeah. I was guinea pig number one. The very first batch of kefir that he made in our townhouse in Skokie, Illinois, right outside of Chicago, a suburb of Chicago. He made the very first batches. I can see it, like I can smell it, like the smell of like fermenting milk, the sound of it like bubbling as he was making it. And when he had a spoon and he like walked over, I was sitting on the carpet playing Bargain Hunter with my brother, a board game, and or maybe it was Hungry Hippos, one of the two. And he came over and he like said, "Here, try this." And that was the very first sample, very first taste of kefir.
Wow.
And yeah, I grew up on the factory floor. Spring breaks was, packing cheese, or my very first demo. He launched the company in 1986 when I was 11 years old. Um, my very first trade show, I was 12 years old at the Fancy Food Show, which is a big industry trade show for kind of specialty foods. And yeah, I remember actually another great moment at that show. Lee Iacocca, iconic businessman, his daughter was launching one of the very first olive oils in the United States. And nobody knew what olive oil was at the time. It was just butter and margarine. And Lee was there with his daughter, standing and signing autographs and like trying to get attention over to their booth. And my dad pointed to me and introduced me, and he said, "Julie, you're going to be just like his daughter. You're going to, taken after her father's footsteps." So yeah, I was 12 years old at my first trade show. My very first demo at a grocery store in Treasure Island. Also, well, it's not there anymore. The chain is gone, but it was a really iconic grocery store in Chicago. And I did my first demo at the time, just, slinging kefir, and nothing's really changed. Just a few more wrinkles.
So by the time you're 27, you're like fully prepared to do this. You were not kind of thrown in. I'm sure you maybe felt underprepared because of your age or because of what people were telling you, but you knew the business inside and out. Can you tell me how you dealt with this SEC scumbag, sounds like, when he says to your mom, "We need some gray hair on the board," and then what do you do?
Totally. Well, he went to jail. He was investigated by the FBI, and he did go to jail for maybe 10 years or so. He says this, and he was like on the speakerphone, and everyone was listening to it. And to me, as soon as somebody says, trust me. And they're like really trying to convince you. It's such a red flag. And when he was like, trust me, Lucy, you need a little bit of gray hair on that board. I was like, whoa, this is like screaming like danger. And so we called in another attorney. So he was SEC counsel. We had corporate counsel. We called corporate counsel to let him know what was happening. And he was like, whoa, this is so highly not okay. This is like, he even used a word. It's like illegal, basically. Us like you can't be a lawyer and try to take over and be a CEO too.
Total conflict of interest.
Maybe that's what he yeah, there were a couple of words he used, legal words that were like describing how illegal it was. So he called an emergency meeting, and we the board voted me in. Basically, they made a motion to put me in as CEO. And, I made a strong appeal. The board knew me. I presented to the board every single meeting for the last 5 years prior to that happening. So they really watched me grow up. They knew my capabilities, my work ethic, all I had done for the company. I was really my father's first English speaking employee. So, a lot of the growth, I came to work for him when it was a $6 million company, and I helped him take it to 12 million. And he essentially, I would say, was semi-retired at that point and just fully pushed all of the work onto me, which I was happy and loved it. I was thriving. I was so excited and happy. But yeah, so they voted me in, and I just started making decisions, and it was as hard as the very first decision, I was like, we need a sign. We don't have a sign outside. We need a sign to show that we're here. We're not going anywhere. We, invested in a sign for the first time since the founding of our company. And it was these small decisions. It wasn't like a monumental decision, but it made a statement that we're here. We're not going anywhere. We're going to keep going. We're strong. And even if it maybe wasn't, a game-changing decision that doubled our business or quadrupled our business or was some epic deal, it was a decision. And all you have to do is just start with one decision and keep making a decision. And
putting a sign outside is a statement. It says, I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. So you're a $12 million company. And now you're, at least, I don't know what you are today, but at one point, number I saw was 130 million revenue company. That might be a bit old, but
yeah, it's old. We're trending on. We're basically a $200 million company at this point.
Okay, so 12 million to 200 million. You know what you're doing here. Tell me what the years have been like. Were there monumental growth moments, or was it really just incremental?
A lot of it was incremental, kind of slow and steady, consistent organic growth. It's every quarter better than the last quarter. It's not taking on more than we can chew. I think a lot of startups especially want to grow big fast, and they want to be national fast, and they want to get to scale fast. But if your marketplace isn't really ready yet, you're just going to be spread too thin. And we always just worked in small zip codes, conquer a zip code, conquer a marketplace.
Does that mean go into the local grocery stores there and just make sure your feet on the ground? Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly. Only bite off what you can chew, versus what other people I've seen, other companies in my space do is go and pay a lot of money for slotting dollars and kind of inauthentically get shelf space, but nobody knows their product. And now they have to spend way more money on advertising and investing to get in advertising to get awareness around, folks to buy their products. It's just too much too fast. If you're a product like ours, where it was unheard of, it's not like it was a new water with flavor. That's understandable. Water, flavor, got it. Vitamin water, easy to understand. This is something that people still don't even know how to pronounce. It's a 2,000-year-old product that originated in the Caucasus Mountains. And while it was a staple where I'm from, and my ancestors passed it down generation to generation for over 2,000 years. In America, no one had ever heard of it. No one knew what the word was. It was, just a fully unknown concept. Nobody was talking about gut health or probiotics. We were the first to write probiotics on our labels. And we really led that conversation. We led the conversation around gut health. We led the conversation around good bacteria and microflora. Nobody would use those words. As a matter of fact, my father, when we started working together, he said, Julie, don't use the word bacteria. Americans don't want to hear the word bacteria, even if it's friendly bacteria, which is why the large yogurt companies never talked about probiotics or bacteria. They talked about it being a diet friendly food in the 80s, which is when kind of yogurt started to make its way onto American shelves. And yeah, so, we when we got into a grocery store, we made sure that we crushed it at that grocery store. And when we
Were you
got
doing sampling on the ground? Were you doing
demos,
like,
right? Demos. We're me standing and doing demos. Hi, would you like to try some Lifeway kefir? Oh, what is that? It looks like Pepto Bismol. That's what I would get a lot of times.
wow.
So yeah, what is this? Oh, it's like a drinkable yogurt, or yeah, the Pepto Bismol was one that I got repeatedly. But yeah, it's literally getting into the store, standing there and giving people tastes. Like once you taste it, it's so delicious. People fall in love with it. But more importantly, they learn about the health benefits and they get pulled in by how good they feel after they drink it. Because, the word kefir is a Turkish word that means kaif. Kaif is good feeling. And the people who consumed kefir 2,000 years ago in the Caucasus Mountains, they reported feeling a sense of well-being. They felt better when they consumed it, which makes total sense because today science and research has backed up that, gut health and having that friendly bacteria contributes to good mental health as well, that the mind and the gut are always communicating. So we can help to reduce stress, depression, and anxiety, which is probably why those people felt a sense of well-being 2,000 years ago. They felt like a joy. They said kaif. It's like in Russian, and it's like kaif is like a buzz. It's like, if I was going to translate it, it's like buzz. They felt like a buzz. And not only the mental health, like digestion and immunity are things that we've known for at least 100 years. We've known that kefir is good for digestion and immunity. And so anyways, I think that when people learn about how much health benefits they can get from something in the grocery store for just a few bucks, and how accessible it is, and it tastes delicious, and you can use it in recipes and whatnot.
It sounds obvious today. It's funny when you say it because today it's like so on trend, but we're talking about 2002. We're talking about 1988. Like it was completely out there. The word bacteria would have been disgusting to hear as a Western consumer. So let me ask you this. So I get the hand-to-hand combat. You're on the ground. You're doing samples every day. Was your space ever infiltrated by VC-backed or just deep-pocketed big guys? Like, did that ever happen to you? Because I know a lot of these wellness industries have been really like there's been a lot of competition. Did you face that?
So I would say not specifically in kefir, but in every other category. We we own 95% of the category in the United States and Mexico, and parts of Eastern Europe and Middle East. But we what I've noticed is that there are a lot of VC private equity backed companies, and that is challenging for us because they have play money. They have monopoly money. They have monopoly money to get on shelf. They have monopoly money to do advertising, to sponsor things. It's become just a lot harder to be in the food industry. And I only know about the food industry. I'm not going to speak to any other industry, but I know I live and breathe the food industry. It's in my DNA. But I do notice that there is a lot of this monopoly money, and then it just makes it harder for like us to go and buy the advertising or get shelf space, because we don't consider our money as monopoly money.
It's real dollars.
Yeah, it's ours, and again, I've just seen people make these mistakes where they try to sit on too many chairs with one ass, if I can say that.
I love that expression.
Yeah.
Too many chairs, one ass.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so you're like you're a business, and I can just tell by the way you operate and your dad operated. I'm sure it's real. It's cash flow, it's margin, it's profit. It's not just let's burn through $20 million and see what happens, which is unfortunately what a lot of other companies do, especially when they're new.
Yep. Yep. They want to show, they want to get that fast growth. But, we were never in it to build a company for right now. We were building a company for all generations, not just this generation. And, to last, a lasting legacy. This was never meant to be built to then go and flip. This was meant to, provide families, hundreds of families, and we employ 300 people today, a life and a place to come, a second home. And that's what I think we've accomplished. And I couldn't be more proud of the team and, everybody who's contributed over the years, because it's been a labor of love. Every person who works for us, I mean, we have very little turnover, and it's not because of the high salaries by any means. I think that people feel that connection, that they're real people, that they're not just a number punching in. Um, that's been really important. And I think people see through, like, they know our family story. They know that we came from the Soviet Union. And I think that resonates. People want authenticity. They want something real, especially today in the world of AI, where so many brands are now just being developed out of chat GBT, and you can tell when something is just an AI developed brand backed by private equity. Throw in a celebrity, throw in some influencers, and let's see what happens. But I think consumers are much smarter than that, and they can see through it, and those companies won't be successful. They'll, like so many companies, burn through. And listen, we've had really challenges in our space. We had to deal with the plant-based movement and an anti-dairy movement, and that was a really
Right.
challenging time. We went from a high and then, lost a lot of revenue and had to climb out of that. We've been in a turnaround for the last 5 years. It's been painful but fun. Turning it around has been really fun, but it's hard. It's not for the weak. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's funny when you mention, like, I'm just picturing right now there could be two college students out there who were born and raised in whatever Texas, and they go and raise a bunch of VC, and they start telling this beautiful story about how they were hiking the mountains. They're hiking the Himalayan, and I learned from this wise man about this chemical, and all of a sudden they're telling a story. You've actually lived it, and they're just putting it on paper.
Yeah.
So I can see that. By the way, I'm just checking out your stock in real time. Are you up like 146% in the last year?
I don't really focus on my stock price, to be honest. I don't obsess about it, but yeah, we are
But
up a
yes.
lot. But yes.
What's it like to be a public company CEO? Is this a lot more pressure? Do you ever just wish, like, I wish it was just a family business that
I
was
would
just
love.
private, or
Yeah.
do you enjoy the spotlight?
Yeah, I think both, both are true. I would love it to not be public and just, not have all the extra risk and expenses. I mean, it's very expensive to run a public company. It's hard to see that. And there's a lot of nonsense, a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of waste in the process, SOX, all of that stuff. But I absolutely do love it. I don't mind being in the spotlight. I think I probably thrive. I thrive under pressure. I love being in that position of, like, having to prove myself. I feel like every quarter is like a new goal, and I love seeing it, happen. I love the that everything is so transparent and that everyone can see, and there's no tricks, there's no, you know there's nothing hidden. It's all there, and you can see through all you can see the balance sheet. And even though
Exactly.
that's not like my necessarily strong suit, but I do know when we're doing well. I can see it.
It can be a lot of smoke and mirrors when the company's private and you're just seeing headlines and you don't actually know what's going on underneath. So yeah, it keeps you honest for sure. Can you talk about, I'm really curious because I know people are listening now and you've had such mega success and I'm wondering about the tactics. So I mean, my takeaway so far, obviously, focus on cash flow, focus on real profit and real money, not just, playing with monopoly money. I also understand you're very zip code focused. Like let's get it right on the ground. Are there one or two things that you think you've done where there's a theme you can pull out and you can say this is why we've been so successful?
Yeah. Well, one of the big things early on was Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point, which I have not read his new book. It's on my list, but it's like The Revenge of the Tipping Point or something, his newest one. But Malcolm Gladwell kind of in that book, I think it became the blueprint for the company and marketing and advertising. Malcolm talks about basically the beginnings of influencer marketing. And he talks about, finding the people that can influence the marketplace, find the connectors, find, the experts, etc. Who are those people? And once that just clicked, once I understood what Malcolm was talking about, and it made so much sense, it's like, the popular people in school, they're the ones who can influence anything to happen. It just, I really, it clicked for me. And so anyways, I laid out a blueprint using the Tipping Point, and I would recommend everyone, I don't know what the new book says, but I would definitely recommend going to read the Tipping Point for anybody, starting a business or
Did
continuing.
you use influencer marketing out of what you learned in that book?
Yeah, but before it was called influencers, they weren't called that. They were just nutritionists who were the hottest nutritionists who were on the Today Show or whatever. Yeah, so we partnered up with, experts in the field to be kind of our spokespeople, our ambassadors. We worked with various ambassadors, people who had some sort of media presence, people who kind of were popular in the community, that maybe could host a panel, or chefs that might use our products in recipes, that might share those recipes in an article or something like that. So yeah, we literally handpicked various influencers in various marketplaces when we would launch a product, and then
What year did you start doing that?
around uh 997, 1997.
Oh, so that was so you weren't even CEO yet. That
No.
97 is when you came in as head of sales and marketing, right?
Yes, exactly. I brought that kind of idea to the company, to my dad. He was kind of doing that also in his own way. He was doing it more in the in the ethnic market, in the Russian Ukrainian marketplace. So he would ask like kind of celebrities, like Russian celebrities, to endorse our products, like musicians and stuff that were coming to the US after Perestroika. So all of these like artists and musicians from Ukraine and Russia would come to America to perform for the community that is in immigrants, the immigrants in the States. And he would always get like a photo of them holding the product, like, like this. It would be
Was
like,
he paying them for this, or
no,
was this just
he hosted them. He invited them, and they wanted their product because they had this, in the Soviet Union, and it was a staple, so they missed it. So, he'd bring them a couple of cases. They fell in love with it. They loved the story that, a Russian Ukrainian immigrant was, building a whole company, living the American dream off of a staple product that they grew up on. They were just, it was a cool thing for them. So no, and so he would then publish those pictures, and like just, more and more people, because of these like celebrities and their influence, they started to drink, kefir, Lifeway. And that's kind of how it happened, like just the early
and
stages
then
of influencer
did you
before social media.
formalize that process in any way? I mean, was it always just casual, or was there actually a system in place? Let's do more of this.
At first it was pretty casual, but then we like created like a strategy, like an actual like we're gonna do this, hire these people, this is our budget, we're gonna, go to these outlets with this. And then after my dad died, so that was 2002. in about like 2006, social media started taking off, or just the early stages of social media. And I'm talking like MySpace. So,
Friendster,
or maybe it was
MySpace.
even before that. It was probably before 2006, because by 2006 I was on Twitter. But so we were on MySpace. We were launching a kids product, Pro Bugs, in a pouch, and they had like a cartoon character. So I thought, oh wait, we could give each of these cartoon character pro bugs a profile on MySpace, and then they can just talk to other, whatever kids, whatever teen, whatever they're, talking. So we gave them a whole, like, we humanized them on MySpace, and that was the very beginning of our influencer marketing on social media. And then when Twitter happened,
With your own characters, though?
yeah, we had our own little characters that we
Oh
designed.
my God, that's so smart. So you weren't actually going out to others. You were just making your own characters humans, basically, like cartoon characters.
Yeah, exactly. They
So
were like
smart.
little character bugs, like like bacteria bugs that we made in cartoon form, and then gave them a story and a whole profile. And then Twitter and Facebook were launched, and Facebook, so some of this was because I was a young, youthful executive. My peer group was showing up in MySpace and on Facebook and on Twitter. Um, I think that if there was a CEO in my role that was, 65, they probably would never have thought about social media yet. That would be decades away. But for me, my friends were all on social media. And so I thought, wait a second, Kefir existed for 2,000 years because of word of mouth. It was story to story, mouth to mouth, grandmother, babushka to babushka in these villages. And that's why it survived and stood the test of time. And now through social media, I can, like wildfire, communicate and share stories, and that could be just amplified so much. So I created a Facebook profile for Lifeway Foods. And at the time, that wasn't even allowed. Facebook would take my profile down and say businesses are not allowed to exist on Facebook. I put it back up. 10 days later, they take it down. Finally, they figured out that, hey, this is a whole revenue stream for us to have businesses on Facebook. And so that obviously changed.
So
But
you were the one who created pages.
exactly. It was thanks to us. Same thing with Twitter. We were the fourth or fifth company on Twitter. Again, I'm up late at night, literally, like I remember this like yesterday. I am on Twitter. I'm like fascinated with it, just watching these tweets. And I start searching for various brands. Who's on here? Pepsi? No, Pepsi's not here. Name the brands. It was Sun Microsystem, Whole Foods, Starbucks, and ComEd. Those were the only four brands that I could find on Twitter when I joined Twitter for Lifeway. So now we start, tweeting, and our following starts growing. We became Vogue at some point. Vogue magazine in a profile said that our early use of social media contributed to our avant-garde status and cult-like following. I
Wow,
remember that.
that's high praise.
Yeah.
So you're super early with this, and I'm imagining you probably had similar experiences with Instagram and
Yes.
like TikTok. I mean, you jump onto these trends before they are before you're too late to the game, because that's something else. It's easy to look at it and say, well, this is working, we should do it, but then it might be too late. When you're early, it's easier to get audience.
Totally. Yeah, it gave us authenticity. Everyone started following us because they were learning from us. We were learning, as it real time, how to use it, but it gave us like a very authentic voice, and our followers were very authentic too. So yeah, and it just helped us spread our message faster, wider, and definitely contributed to, I think, a lot of our future growth.
So now at $200 million revenue or revenue run rate, are you changing like the on the ground hand to hand combat? Are you already in all the markets you want to be in, or is there still a lot of runway to grow on a sort of zip code by zip code level?
Absolutely. There is still so much work to do. I feel like we're just getting started. We haven't even scratched the surface. I still see so much low hanging fruit even just in our core line, let alone new products that we're launching. Oh yes, there is so much that I still want to go and do for the brand, and opportunities that I see. It's like I can taste it. I mean, there's the whole hospitality, away from home sales, like grocery. We're in every grocery store. We're in Walmart. We're in Whole Foods. We're in upper like Air One type stores, which if people don't know, it's in California, like probably one of the most expensive stores in the United States. So ultra premium to very affordable, very accessible stores like Walmart and Target. But there's always new products that we're launching. As a matter of fact, just today we are announcing 10 new flavors, really awesome exotic flavors like um, taro ube, like an Asian inspired flavor, lychee, passion fruit, guava, jackfruit, pink dragon fruit, hot honey. So these trends, we were talking about trends. Hot honey is a hot trend right now. Hot honey is on everything, right? We're going to have the first uh, cultured dairy product, hot honey flavored. Taro ube, named one of the most exciting flavors of the year. So that'll be the first probiotic flavor. So seeing these various trends that happen and seeing how we can uh, find the intersection for our brand and whatever trend is happening, whether that's a trend of social media or a trend of a flavor or a trend of a grocery store or whatever. I'm always looking for where are those trends and where can we intersect them with the brand. Yeah, so there's
Where
food, there's college campuses, there's airplanes and hotels, there's convenience stores. We're in a few convenience stores, but we can definitely be in more. We have new products like farmer's cheese. What actually, sorry, this is a legacy product. This is product number 2 at Lifeway, but it's a product that we've left in the ethnic market. And now, because of the trend of cottage cheese went viral on social media last year. This is a blended cottage cheese, essentially. This is one of the hottest things that you'll start seeing all around your grocery stores. We're scaling this. We are the number 1 manufacturer of farmer's cheese as it is today. But we've been making it for 38 years, and now is the time to scale it. So, we waited until the moment was right for the marketplace before we scale, before we spend money in it. But this is going to be really fun to grow, and I can't wait to show the community and our customers how they can use. Actually, Bethany Frankel just did a TikTok about this week.
Oh yeah.
I'm so excited because, yeah, it had 177,000 views already in like a few hours. Unbelievable.
About your brand in particular?
Yes, our
Oh,
brand.
that's so cool.
I know.
Good for
So
you.
it's exciting. Lots of fun things.
So, where does this this business sounds like it gets better and better every year because A, it's growing, but also because you're just getting the trends are catching up with where you are. Where does the fire inside you come from? It sounds like your dad had it, you have it. There's this, I don't know, there's this energy that comes across. Is that from your upbringing? Is that because you're an immigrant or an immigrant family?
Probably all of those things. It's my journey in life that, my dad saw something in me. He actually said, Julie, I see something in you that you don't even see yourself. Actually said, I'm going to make you a senator. I see something in you that you don't even see yourself. But yeah, I think first of all, I've had a lot of challenges and I've overcome a lot of obstacles personally and professionally. And, today I'm almost 50 and I'm living in my truth, and I bring truth to power. And, I'm just finally stepping into my own confidence. I think I had to keep finding things to validate myself to show that, hey, yeah, you can do this. You're 5 feet tall, but you can do this. The youngest only woman in the room very often, in a room of older gray haired men. And I always stood my own ground, and I could dance circles around pretty much anybody in any room at this point today. I am that confident. I feel a sense of power just exuding. but more than that, it's what I do with that power and how I use it. And, for me, I feel good that I use it to help bring healing to people, that we can improve people's lives, that we can bring them comfort when they're not feeling well, that we can bring them nutrition when they're, going through a horrific medical treatment and feeling dark. And it's these little small things that make me feel like my day is worth it. I just received a message from a new Ukrainian refugee who just came to the country, and she escaped missiles and bombs falling on her head, and now she's here, and she had a successful business in Ukraine and a successful life, and everything was taken away overnight. And she picked up our product in one of the ethnic grocery stores, and she read the story on the back of it, and she was stunned. She said, just reading your story gave me hope, because it makes me feel like I can survive here in America. And thank you so much for being here. And it was such a heartwarming reminder for me that there are new people coming to this country, and they're also looking to just live their best life. Like, everyone wants to have safety and peace and thrive and live their dreams and fulfill their, potential. And it was a reminder that my story, anybody can learn from my story and feel like, I hope that my passion is contagious, and that others feel the same level of passion that I have for Lifeway and for kefir, and just for life in general, that people can take some of that and use it in their own lives to build a better world for all of us. Like, if we all lean into our passions, it would be a really interesting world.
And you're outspoken about that and other things also on social media. I wonder, like, how much of your persona, your profile, obviously you're a public company chairwoman. You mentioned that maybe your dad wanted you to be a senator. Like, do you have, I don't want to say do you have aspirations. I'm sure you have lots of aspirations. You're very young, but like, where do you sort of see yourself using your influence? Like, do you want to be more politically outspoken, socially outspoken? Do you want to stand for something else?
Yeah. Well, at this moment, I'm just focused on, Lifeway, and that is my number one priority. It's baby number one, and my kids are baby 2 and 3. But
In that order?
yeah, they flip sometimes, but Lifeway came before the kids. But so I'm focused on that, and there's just so much great opportunities that it's hard to even dream beyond all the things that Lifeway has ahead for itself. But yeah, I mean, I would love to be. I think I am as outspoken as I feel comfortable and as much as I have time for. There's so much more I want to share, but it's just, I think time is the greatest commodity, and there's just not enough of it. And I would love to be more outspoken, but it's just really hard. I really am in awe of those people that are posting every day and creating content, because it's really hard to do it well. I think it is time consuming. So I
Mm.
do appreciate it. I would love to be more outspoken, and I have a lot of opinions, and I try to share those, and try to influence people. And sometimes you can step in a couple of messes, but I think mostly, everything comes from good intentions. And if you have good intentions around what you're trying to share, maybe people might disagree with you, but they can respect your good intentions. And even if you make a mistake when you're outspoken, I think people are afraid today to speak their mind. But some things are just, undeniably true. And
How often do you think to yourself, okay, so how often do you have an opinion, political, social, whatever, and you
every day,
you think to yourself, Julie, I should probably just keep that to myself?
I've learned the hard way. Yeah, just, well, unfortunately, I think, my dad was very outspoken politically as well, but it was before social media, and it was before the world was as divided as it is today. So I have been around that block a little bit, and I've learned a lot about politics, and kind of having a little bit of an inside track to it. It's kind of it's it's kind of turned me off to politics, truthfully. I was really deep in politics for a little while, and now it's like, you know what? I think there's other ways to influence and have power in a more creative way rather than in politics, which to me just seems like circular and intentionally divisive, and it's not helpful. And I really pray for the day when things kind of change. And I hope there's leaders that kind of come up in the next generations that can be more unifying than divisive. I think we probably agree, everyone probably agrees on a few basic things about life, and then everything else we get divisive on. But I have a lot of opinions. And I look forward to one day when I can just be very, very transparent about them. But who cares about my opinion, I guess, on some of those issues? And I can't make the change anyway. So, there's things that I can influence, and our budget, global budget, is probably not one of those things.
Right. It's funny. I was talking with a sort of a high profile or a PR woman who has high profile clients. And I said to her privately, what's your take when the CEO of company X wants to talk about whether it's, who should we vote for, Trump or Kamala, or what do we think about giving money to Ukraine, Israel, all these different topics. And, her response was actually, if you can avoid it at all costs, avoid it, which I understand is smart for shareholder value and just staying out of the mud. I understand it. But the flip side of that is then you sometimes just get hit for not saying anything. Like if you don't condemn this or if you don't endorse that, you actually get are in an even worse position. So I don't know. It's kind of like a darned if you do, darned if you don't scenario.
It absolutely is. Well, I think in like the cases that you pointed out, I think we've learned, or we've been kind of advised, like if it doesn't impact your community, you don't need to say something. You don't need to say anything. My product originates from Eastern Europe, from Ukraine and Russia. I am Ukrainian. I was born in Kiev. My homeland has been decimated. My staff, many of my staff is from the region, from both sides. They still have family there. It's been devastating to watch it. And, I think if you have taken any time to learn history or just are human, we know that we don't just throw bombs at people, at countries. Like you just don't do that out of the blue. And that's what happened on February 24th, 2022. And, it was unprovoked, and people were just living their lives. And I mean, I just think like, it's 2020, 2024, 2025. Like, are we still going to that? Are we still playing those games, boys and their toys kind of thing? Like, I just don't understand what's going on. If mothers ran the world, there would definitely be less bombs. I'll tell you that. Um,
That's
but
the headline.
yeah, and mama bears, right? We fight for our kids. I think that, once you get a mom in there talking about the devastation, and that her kids can't go to the park, or that they're in bomb shelters for days on end, like that's devastating. It's just, no parent wants to go through that. And so, if you think that it's okay to take over a country and take more land, I guess that's an opinion. But I will say, where I did influence and change some laws and policy, I'm really proud of this work. And it also goes to show that you don't have to be a senator or in politics to make real lasting change. So I launched a company called a nonprofit called Test 400K. And it was after I learned that there was 400,000 untested rape kits in the United States. And I was appalled. These kits were collected. It was evidence kits that were collected, over 30 years ago, and never analyzed. And they just sit in police storage, crime labs all across the country. And Human Rights Watch called it the biggest human rights abuse that women in the United States face. So we launched a campaign to shine a light on this. We FedExed a rape kit to every governor, an unused rape kit, new rape kit to every governor. We FedExed it. We published the FedEx numbers so that media and their constituents could see how fast you could track it, how fast it could get from place to place to prove a point. And we put out a call to action, and we had governors sign this call to action, and it was a national campaign. It received a lot of attention. We halted the statute of limitations on rape kits in Illinois, and subsequently through this work we were able to create rape kit reform in every single state. So that was really, really powerful. And then the Me Too movement broke, and I felt like, okay, I don't have to be the only one working on this. And that was a really big relief. But it was kind of an example. I've been working in that space for over 30 years, and in this movement, I would say. And suddenly it happened. That was really powerful and special. And I've worked on documentary films. I've produced 4 or 5 movies that also were in the space around violence against women. And one was The Hunting Ground, which won an Emmy and nominated for an Oscar. And Lady Gaga sang the song "Till It Happens to You" for the movie. I got to share the stage with Lady Gaga, Oscar stage with Lady Gaga, and 50 survivors. I'm a survivor myself. So I was, we, through that movie, it highlighted the, I would say, uh, sexual assault on college campus, and the fact that none of them were being investigated or there was no accountability. And so we had we had over 320 schools in the United States investigated for Title IX issues and discrimination.
Wow.
Yeah.
Listen, one theme I'm seeing here also to close the loop is that you are ahead of almost every trend that you touch on. Like everything you're talking about, you are on it before it becomes mainstream, before it becomes the thing to do. Like you said, you were doing those things to help women and sexual assault survivors before the Me Too movement even happened. Which really, I mean, when that kind of took off, it wasn't a talking point before then, you know.
No,
And so
I mean,
and you were
yeah, I was even afraid to share like an article around sexual assault on Facebook. That's how taboo it was at the time when I've been working on it. Nobody was talking about it. When I was 15, 16 years old, I helped write the first teen dating violence curriculum in Chicago. And nobody talked about it. And I was really timid about ever sharing my own, experiences as a volunteer, as working in this movement. I really did a lot of that work kind of secretly. And yeah, I think, it just goes to show that, a few dedicated people can really change the world. So I definitely feel that I've used, my story and my pain to purpose. And, you know,
well, Julie, it's an inspiring story across the board. Thank you so much for sharing it today. Where can people find out more about you?
yeah, you can visit me personally. I'm at Julie Smolyansky on all the platforms. I'm mostly active on Instagram. And then the company is at Lifeway Kefir on all the platforms.
Well, we'll be drinking our kefir today. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great chat.